Hello everybody, it's Max with Crypto Talk now. As promised, I am more than glad to get this out to you guys in regards to the bull run thesis. These particular boom cycles, why they're important, why they should matter to you, why they should matter to all of us, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this particular coverage. And I'm glad to be back and present a lot of this to you guys. I've been dealing with some personal problems in regards to my dad being in the hospital and so on, but nonetheless, glad to be here. So with that said, let's jump into this, and I want to point this out real quick. If you're wondering what this is about, why I put so much emphasis on this and so on, I want to point this out. You can go to, for instance, Crypto Talk Now. You could click from where it says home, click the video section, and this is part 4 of this ongoing unofficial series, if you will, when it comes to the utility run that will spark the bull run. So again, this is part 4. The first part of this was where you see where it says utility run. This was released 3 weeks ago. On top of that, you have, for instance, this other one that I released 12 days ago called Utility Run, ISO 222, XRP, XLM, Qnt. And then the third one, I believe, was only a few days ago. Well, let's face it, 8 days ago, a little over a week. Top 5 signs of the bull run. You have Qnt, XRP, XLM, Xdc, and even Hbar. So if you haven't seen those ones, you're more than welcome to take a look into them. They are in the video section, and there you have it. So let's go ahead and jump into why I'm going to go ahead and continue to state some of these particular things in regards to this boom cycle, right? The utility run that will lead into the actual bull run. Am I doing it just to hop on the bandwagon and do something bold? Well, in reality, I do like being a little bit bold, but if anything, I don't base it off of opinions. I don't base it off of emotions. The main thing that I like to do is basically, I like the idea of seeing actual data. And shout out to Luke Lango of, for instance, Investor Place, who provides this particular information. Same with Charlie Shrem. But a little emphasis on Luke Lango. If you're wondering what Investor Place is, we're not being paid by them by any means. It's just a premium service I pay annually. And they have gotten it 9 times out of 10. I'm telling you flat out. I've been subscribed to this for over, oh man, at least a year plus. And 9 times out of 10, they've gotten it right. And the way I look at Luke Lango, he has a great background in just that analytics. He used to do work, for instance, with the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Philadelphia 76ers. And let's face it, I mean, you know, those are 2 huge world-renowned sports franchises. You know, he has to do it at a professional scale to get it right. And so why wouldn't I want to listen to somebody like that who will actually provide me data? And if anything, I'll draw my own conclusions on this, and you can as well. So it says, last week we told you of a brand new crypto boom cycle that was starting. I realized this was a few days ago. Again, I apologize. I want to get this out earlier. But look at this. We saw, for instance, Bitcoin, it broke above 21,000 this week. In fact, it broke even higher than that. Let's get into that for a moment. So, for instance, here it is, and Bitcoin was higher than that. It broke into the 23s, right? This happened back on the 21st, right? So touch that for a brief moment and so on. Now, getting back into this particular coverage and why it matters to you. So, again, this is part of this bull run cycle 2023 thesis. It's only strengthened in regards to these particular claims. Investor Place feels very confident as ever that a new crypto boom cycle is indeed starting and that Bitcoin will rally more than, listen to this, 100+% in 2023, while top performing altcoins will rally 500% plus. Now, as you guys know, we don't really put out a lot of content in regards to Bitcoin specifically, but if anything, we have to realize what? That Bitcoin represents, as well as Ethereum, roughly, not exactly, but roughly about 80 to 81% of the overall crypto market cap. So typically speaking, if those do really, really well, altcoins do well as well. All right. So yes, like they mentioned, sounds very bold, some of these particular statements, but they are calling for a massive crypto boom cycle to get started at the same time it has become vogue to hate on the entire industry. And let's face it, everybody, when it comes to just that, the whole entire mainstream media is absolutely doing what? They're hating on crypto. You will see, for instance, and you probably even seen it part of your own feed if you bust out your phone. You might even get some shorts in regards to this, something random that you didn't even ask for. But you know what? It's nice to see what's going on from the naysayers, right? They're saying that crypto is just a giant scam and all these particular things. But let's look into the nitty-gritty. If crypto is such a scam, and which, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of crap that's happened, right? FTX, Terra Luna, Celsius, all that stuff, right? And that fuels the fire to those particular claims. But here's my particular claim I want to state for you guys, and I've been pretty consistent in regards to this. What is going to start the real true bull run is what starts with a utility run. And why am I going to state that to you? Well, we're going to break that down here in a bit, and it has to do with something called the QFS, the Quantum Financial System. All right, so we'll get into that in a bit, but the main thing I want you guys to take away from this is this. Once we get regulatory clarity, especially here in the United States, and of course having that applied to crypto in general, that is where institutional money will start coming in massive ways. And once that happens, we get widespread adoption. And that's why, if anything, I feel that much more bullish, especially for 2023, while everybody's saying, nope, this whole thing is going to go to, I heard people say, below 12K. Some people say it's going to go nothing. I hear some people say, for instance, we're going to get black swan events. Binance is corrupt, all this stuff, right? And while I'm not saying any of these people are, rooting for that, I have to be objectionable in regards to some of it, right? And, realize, in any time of crypto, whether it's a bull run or, for instance, a bear market, black swan events could very well happen. So, again, let's get more into this particular video, the main part of the topic and so on. It says this past week, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon said that investing in crypto is like owning pet rocks, but yet you have Onyx. Yet you have R3 Corda, right? The banking blockchains. It makes no sense. Like, do they not realize what they're invested in? Anyway, seemingly every day for the past few days, CNBC personality June Crater, which I've pointed out on the live show many times, has been calling for the whole industry as a quote-unquote sham. But yet, let's face it, September 2021, he tells everybody, for instance, to do what? To, for instance, get out of crypto. And 2 months later, on 11/11/2021, you see all-time highs for Bitcoin, 69K. You see all-time highs for Ethereum, 4,300 plus. And then, for instance, in January 2022, he tells everybody to start buying crypto. And what happens? Well, you know the rest, crypto winter. All right, or at least the start of the bear market. So let's get more into this. It says, for instance, esteemed economist Nouriel Roubini also said that 99% of the industry is a scam. Now, does this fuel more fire to or put fuel to the fire, I should say, when it comes to like some of these particular statements of 99% crypto go away? Well, maybe. But look at this. It says, for instance, yet through all that bad press and negative commentary, cryptos have sustainably, consistently, and powerfully rallied. And that is the main thing I want you guys to take away from here. And again, we'll have some data to support these particular claims, right? Just like I mentioned. Opinions don't drive price, data does. And that's what I go by. I don't base everything off of just, for instance, YouTubers. You shouldn't base everything off of what I'm saying. You should always do more of your own research and so on. But we do try our best to bring it to you guys without just shilling any particular crypto. I saw one guy in the comments saying that something about, I'm trying to pump my own bags. Like, really, man? There's always going to be these types of people to say that, like, for instance, with LCX, I don't even own LCX yet. Right? Yeah, but apparently I'm pumping my own bags. Anyway, there's always going to be people out there that don't see the light. And if anything, we welcome people, believe it or not, who are objectionable and are going to post FUD. Let's let them do it. If anything, they're pleasing our algorithm. So thank you. All right. So it says, while the mainstream media's opinions of crypto are decidedly negative right now, the data is decidedly positive. And that's one of the key things I want to point out. All right. So they at Investor Place have been saying for weeks, it really all comes back basically to the macroeconomic picture, cryptos are the quintessential risk asset, and therefore they have a history of soaring when risk sentiment turns positive. And that's the main reason why I'm into crypto, right? I understand, for instance, when I compare this to the likes of, for instance, the stock market in the past, I'm not into crypto for a 30% gain. I am into crypto for when things go parabolic to create, if anything, generational wealth. And I had a taste of that in regards to things going parabolic back in 2021. For instance, I know this is not a utility-driven crypto, but Shiba Inu 8K became 88K. Dogecoin 300 became 22K. CRO $1,700 investment became 10 grand. 10K into 120K. But that isn't going to give me the generational wealth I'm looking for. But some of these particular ones could very well be just that. My meal ticket for financial independence and generational wealth. That is what I'm most interested in. And if anything, that is why we cover these particular cryptos here at Crypto Talk Now. It's not just pumping our own bags or any of that nonsense. It's because we realize the utility. The key thing is utility. The utility-driven cryptos are the ones that are part of the quote-unquote 1% they're going to survive and make it through the end of the day. That's why you're tuning in right here, if anything. And if you're new to all this, then by all means, welcome. We do try our best to cover these particular ones and bring it to you guys on a daily basis on both the recorded and also on our live streams. So, what about the leading indicators in regards to this? Well, like it shows right here, every single time the Bloomberg Financial Conditions Index turned positive for the first time after being negative for several months. So every single time risk sentiments turned positive for the first time after being negative for several months, Bitcoin entered a boom cycle. And that's one of the key things you need to take away from this, without even getting more into the whole concept of utility-driven cryptos, because let's face it, Bitcoin just doesn't have the utility, right? So why put so much emphasis on it? Well, we need to have a firmer understanding of where we're going to get when it comes to a bull market. Now, it says this happened in December 2010. Financial conditions turned positive after being negative for over 6 months. Bitcoin soared about 9,500% over the next few months. This happened in September 2012. Financial conditions turned positive after being negative for more than a year. Bitcoin soared more than 10,000% over the course of about a year. A little bit more. 2016, November of 2016, we saw that financial conditions turned positive after being choppily negative for about 14 months. Over the next year, Bitcoin charged higher by more than 2,500%. And again, this happened in July 2020. Financial conditions turned positive after being negative for 5 months. Bitcoin popped more than 550% over the next 34 weeks. And that's a long period of time. All right, look at this. And yes, it is happening again right now. Don't base it just on the day. You will have pullbacks. And if anything, pay close attention to what happens to the market afterwards. So it says financial conditions have turned positive after being negative for about a year, which is totally true. Let's face it, 2022 was one of the worst, but not the worst, crypto winners that we've ever had to deal with. Will Bitcoin pop over the next year, or will this be the first time ever that Bitcoin doesn't soar after financial conditions turn positive following a long bout of negative financial conditions? Well, I will state this, all right, whether you guys follow this particular person or not. Richard Hart of Hex, by the way, he's a billionaire. He has literally outlined some of the things I'm mentioning to you as well, and he has been right every single time in regards to some of his particular predictions. And I feel as though we're getting now into just what? The next particular cycle, a boom cycle. So, let's get more into this. Here's this particular graph. And you're going to see right here, I want to draw, of course, your attention. I try to zoom this in as much as I can. If anything, you know what, let me try to just come out of the frame just briefly. There we go. And, I'll come back in the frame in just a bit. So, Bloomberg United States Financial Conditions Index, mid-price, right? So you see some of this, right? And it takes you all the way back to 2010, as you see in the bottom left. So everything that we outlined, that I said above, here is representation of all this specifically. So just take a moment to look at a lot of this, right, and see where we're going. And this is, of course, what excites me, to say the least, because, you know, the way I look at it is kind of like that 500 plus gains and so on that we're expecting. You see some of these indicators, as you can see right here. All right. So I'm going to come back into the frame for just a brief moment. And, you know, I keep wanting to point out some of these key things because it's worthy to mention it. We need to have a broader understanding of all this, right? So, for instance, the macros are very conclusive here. They suggest that cryptos are about to enter a new boom cycle. And here at Crypto Talk now, it's not just with the last, you know, this will technically be the 4th video. We have outlined for a while now, even on the live show, boom cycles. We even had a series on the live show in regards to boom cycles. I think it was about 3 or 4 different times we did a particular series on just that. So, for instance, forget the opinions of the supposed smartest people in the room. Pay attention to the data. It's crystal clear. Cryptos are ready to run. That's what I'm so excited about and so on. Yeah, I mean, you know, with LCX, I'm not going to, you know, get into it while it's pumping. I'm going to wait for another, you know, drawback and so on. Every now and then, you know, there's one in which, for instance, might get away from me as far as getting bottom. I can't get bottom and everything, but for the most part, I've done all right. Unexpected bills don't help either. And let's face it, also on top, I basically put in a little over 52K at the beginning of the year. Again, part of my own crypto journey, if you will. But the other parts of late this year, I've been doing all right. For instance, Audius, I don't know if you guys are into that. Got into that about roughly, I don't know, about 14, 15 cents. And that one went as high as 36 cents. But that's yet another story. That's another one that's recommended from Investor Place. But anyway, another insight we like to share with you this week comes from the research team over at Bloomberg Intelligence. They too have identified very bullish pattern that points to a crypto boom cycle. And again, that particular graph came from them. Though it has nothing to do with the macros, it has to do with ownership trends. And let's get into specifically that. So for instance, if you're wondering about this, Bitcoin investors can be segmented into 2 groups. Short-term holders, so-called tourists, and long-term holders, so-called residents. You know, some people look at this as, you know, for instance, short-term swing traders and so on. It's just a different way of, you know, describing it. So it says, unsurprisingly, residents buy into bear markets and sell into bull markets. True. While tourists buy into bull markets and sell into bear markets. That's not very telling. But what is very telling is the specific behavior of the tourists. Now, hear me out. It says that is Bitcoin supply held by tourists almost always bottoms right around 3 million. We'll get into that here in a bit as we scroll down. And bottom in Bitcoin price tends to be marked by tourist supply that has languished around 3 million coins for about a year. Current Bitcoin supply held by tourists is 2.9 million coins. It has languished at these levels for a little over a year, and that's worthy of pointing out. Therefore, current ownership trends in Bitcoin are historically consistent with bear market bottoms. And here's an example of just that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And as you can see right here, here's a representation of just that. Coins move to addresses that basically save, or I should say hoard, during bear markets. Here's a representation of just that. You had the Bitcoin supply held by long-term holders, like you see right here. And then you also have, for instance, in purple, Bitcoin supply held by short-term holders, right? Which was about 2.931 million. And at the very bottom it says supply held by short-term addresses, again, with the purple. Fast money, retail, swing traders, you name it, right? Spike into these particular cycle peaks. All right. Before I come back in the frame, it says, at this juncture, there's simply too many buy signals firing. I couldn't agree more. And on top of that, you know, one thing I do want to point out is a little bit more in regards to what you see here. And that is, to us, or let's face it, Investor Place, the picture is pretty clear. A new crypto boom cycle is most likely starting right now. And if anything, so far we've been right. I haven't seen anybody said, you know what, Max, you're full of crap. It's okay if you want to say that, you know. I mean, I'm not the type of guy that's going to shoot down, you know, what people say and so on. I mean, other channels, for instance, they wouldn't even let, you know, some of these guys who like to FUD say things, you know, they censor them and so on. They can say what they want as long as they're respectful. and they don't do any personal attacks. That's the main thing. But anyway, it says, but what about all the naysayers? Yeah, speaking of which, right? They actually are the fuel for this rally, just like they are actually the fuel for helping our algorithm on our particular channel. Anyway, so Sir John Templeton once said, quote, bull markets are born on pessimism, grown on skepticism, mature on optimism, and die on euphoria. Wow, that was pretty poetic. The widespread existence of crypto pessimism right now is exactly what we need for the birth of a new crypto bull market. And I couldn't agree more. Once that pessimism turns into euphoria, as it did in late 2021, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, so on. That's when we'll know it's time to sell. And again, there's a difference between when you see, for instance, the start of a bull run and when you get, for instance, to what? All-time highs. And I want people to understand, you know, I'm not saying that this is the start for all-time highs. No, you have to have a start of anything. So the start of a bull run, for instance, I believe starts with a utility run. So it states, for now, they believe it's time to buy. I can't give you no official financial advice, but they state that they narrowed down their particular buy list to a few top-notch altcoins, and they hope that those produce to a new buy alerts for you for the next few weeks and so on. And I want to get into just that. I've been consistent when it comes to specifically what? The utility run that will really trigger a real true bull run. And I feel as though it starts with particularly what you're going to see right here. And it's referred to as the QFS, the Quantum Financial System. Why am I outlining this particular ones to you? Well, here's the thing. Here at Crypto Talk Now, we do love to cover the ones that are quote-unquote ISO 222. You know, Quant technically is not ISO 222. It is a different ISO standard. It's ISO TC 307, and of course, we did a deep dive in regards to understanding ISO TC 307. Again, you go to the video section and you can get into that if you would like to learn more about that. We talked about LCX before. Again, LCX is part of that particular list. This list covers 20 particular different tokens and coins. Some of them are tokens who, let's face it, are built on top of a particular blockchain. Some of them are coins, which, let's face it, they're part of just that. You know, for instance, they are part of like the originating source, if you will. So look at this, LCX, right? It's still pumping, 32%. We did cover this for the longest time. I want to point this out. So, you know, look at this. So original all-time highs for LCX was 45 cents back on November 6th of 2021. But there's all-time highs for a lot of things, Bitcoin, Ethereum, so on, right? So here's one of the main key takeaways I want to point out. What was bottom for LCX? Well, bottom for LCX was roughly about 3 cents, right? Maybe slightly under 3 cents. So for a lot of people, I mean, this is a 10... Yeah, this is about a 10x, not too shabby, right? And if anything, I mean, this is, you know, it's quite amazing to see this specifically. You know, for instance, I should say it's quite a 10x. You know, it's a little over, I don't know why I said it that way. It's a little over a 3.5x, something like that. I don't know why I said 10x, my bad. But anyway, really impressive to see it. And you saw some big, huge gains that happen, right? For instance, you see that at the end of December, this really took off. And why? I would say basically the combination of Monty Metzger writing that particular book, but Davos, right? Getting together with the World Economic Forum, some of these other things, you know, for instance, you know, the Quant partnership, which, don't get me wrong, that's already existed for a while. But on top of that, launching on their particular exchange, LeoX, the first ever QRC 721 token from Quant, right? All these particular factors, you know, just got a lot more exposure. The World Economic Forum, whether you're for them or not, there was a lot of eyeballs on that particular event. And let's face it, Monty Metzger of LCX killed it with providing a particular, you know, multiple use cases for LCX and so on. People look at LCX as being the quote-unquote blockchain bank, right? And that's what sets them ahead of a lot of different ones out there. All right, let's go a little bit more into this. So I want to show you guys this right here. And if anything, look at some of these particular ones. And here's the key takeaway from this, right? So currently speaking, you have, I believe, 14 out of 20 that are doing well, right? So obviously LCX up about 83-84%. We haven't covered Stronghold token, but some of you guys talk about on the show. That one's really doing well, 41%. ALBT, we cover that all the time. Let's take a brief moment on that. I mean, that one's done really, really well. I think, if anything, this was around 3 or 4 cents at one point. I mean, yeah, people saw all-time highs back in September 2021, $1.22. This one's going to go so much higher than that. Again, not financial advice. That's just how I personally feel. Let's take a look at how it did in the last 3 months. So some people got into what's referred to as bottom, roughly around the 4.5 cent mark, right? So slightly over 4 cents. And this has been great. I mean, this has gone up to, for instance, as high as 12.5 cents. And that happened basically at the mid part of this month of January, right? And so I wanted to point that out as well. And then here's some other ones. Let's do the 7-day again. Electronium happens to be one that Investor Place has covered in the past. We cover quant here. Let's face it, quite often most of you guys watch our particular quant coverage. Is what has really made our channel stand out. But if anything, look at quant. $152.68. All those people were hoping that this would have crashed to 40 or 50. It went in the opposite direction, right? So, we have, for instance, quant is ranked 35th overall in the top 100. And if anything, it's got a confirmed market cap from CMC of 1.8, for instance, $1.8 billion. Constellation DAG is one that we want to take a deep dive into and present it to you guys in the future. Be on the lookout for that. Hbar's Hbar. But, here's the thing, guys. We've been consistent with covering a lot of these, but what is the consistent thing that you see here? They're all part of the QFS, the Quantum Financial System, and we'll do a breakdown here in a bit. Algorand, again, Hbar's Hbar, ISO 222, all these other ones are part of that particular mix of ISOs, right? Some of them are officially ISOs, some of them aren't, some of them are going to be on the list of becoming one, but again, the consistent thing is they're all part of this thing called QFS, Quantum Financial System. So anyway, here's Algorand. Some of you, we covered that before on the live. Also, I think Larry did a short intro into it and so on. He might have had some audio problems at the time, but it's okay. Stellar Lumens, I really feel as though, again, that's part of, for instance, the utility run that gets into the bull run. We've been consistent on why that is. It has to do, for instance, with ISO 222 going live on March 20th of this year. So that's literally what, little under 2 months away. And again, ISO 222, the rollout, or I should say the mandate, was originally supposed to happen in November. That got delayed to when? March 20th. I don't think that gets delayed again. It's possible, let's face it, but that's the thing. All right, so you're going to have, for instance, the central banks of the world, right, going live with this new system, new messaging system. Stellar is right there with Ripple as far as being, what they bring to the bank-to-bank payments, right? Ripple, of course, is in regards to the bank. I should say bank-to-bank. Stellar is for the peer-to-peer payments. Ripple's for the bank-to-bank payments. And don't turn your backs on this XDC, right? I'll give a shout out to Rich the Common Sense Crypto. I know a lot of you guys watch him. He has done a really great job of pointing out, for instance, that when it comes to XDC, that's where you have the trade sector, right? So, for instance, think about what they do with gold, right? Being able to, have that tied into specifically like gold bullion and things like that. And we cover that here at Crypto Talk Now as well. A lot of people look at, for instance, XRP backed by gold, XLM backed by silver, XDC backed by copper. Now you may be thinking, well, the trade sector, I thought you just said gold. Again, you gotta look more into it, if anything, but it's very, very undervalued. It's sitting at a little under 3 cents. I feel as though it's just a matter of time before this one pops off as well. And I get it. Some of these ones, right? Like some people look at XRP, they may be swing trading. Me personally, that's not my thing. But they may be swing trading it because it went from, for instance, 32 cents to 40. Some people feel as though we have a new support level. And if it could hold above 40, where we go from here. That is not why I hold these particular ones. I'm holding all these particular ones, not all of them, I should say all, But I don't, for instance, I don't hold IOTA yet. There's a lot of these I need to get into, but there's a lot to get into, right? And I'm really personally reinvested quite of my profits that I earned in 2021 back into crypto. So I'm very, very picky, to say the least, on what I get into, but it has to have solid real world utility. The point is, XDC is extremely undervalued. But anyway, a nice thing also is Polygon Matic. That's another one that Investor Place has recommended. For instance, they killed it in the 2022 bear market. Excuse me. They were one of the standout ones. Let's face it, it's currently ranked 11th. But what is the main thing I want to point out here? The main thing I want to point out here, for instance, is, for instance, some of those partnerships, Disney, what they provided, for instance, with NFTs and so on, like with OpenSea. I mean, think about Ethereum, right? Originally, a lot of people didn't like the idea of paying these high gas fees, but they did because Ethereum stood out as being one of the top players, if not the top one, when it came to NFTs. And of course, think about how Solana blasted off, right? They were looked upon as being the nemesis, if you will, to the an answer to Ethereum, right? And you saw huge gains, and there's a lot of opportunity. A lot of millionaires, for instance, were made on Solana. And if anything, we saw Solana drop all the way down to the $9 range. People were saying don't get into it and so on. And what happened? It went all the way up to, I believe, $25, $26, and it's still having momentum. I get it. I'm with Daniel Gayton, who part of a crypto roundtable. He stated, I want to get into Solana because 13% is locked up, for instance, with I believe he said, for instance, FTX, and that's something to be said. But I'm just looking at Solana on the short term. All right, other ones, obviously, Casper, ISO 222, or at least going to be part of that particular list. Flare is a new big player. But again, these particular 20 that you see here, Larry did a video on Sologenic, Quorum. We're going to do some updates in regards to that. But the consistent thing here is they're part of this thing, the QFS, Quantum Financial System, 20 different particular ones, right? Why does that matter? Well, let's jump right into that. This particular video is kind of like a combination of, the reasons for, the bull run thesis and so on. But on top of that, we want to give you some extra bonus content here because it's good to know some of these things. So if you're wondering, well, Max, why are you making a big deal about the QFS, the Quantum Financial System? Here's why. Here's this particular outline. If anything, I'm gonna double check to see if it's big enough for you. Let me see if I can blow it up just a tad bit more. Let's see. 175. Yeah, I'll do 175. See how that looks. That looks big enough, so I don't have to come out of the frame completely. But yeah, what is the Quantum Financial System? What's it all about and so on? This was written back in 2022, but again, we love to provide you guys deep dives in our particular research and so on. So the Quantum Financial System, or QFS for short, has become a popular technical term, especially with the finance industry, right? As digital technology has grown in popularity, cybercrime has also increased significantly. We become more dependent on just that, digital media, so on and so forth, right? So it looks like it says right here, it says it comes as no surprise that banks, and that's the key thing here, banks. Think about how you just saw in that particular list we just showed you from CMC for the Quantum Financial System. What one stood out as being, quote unquote, like a bank, LCX, a blockchain bank, right? It's just, that's more than coincidence. So it says, it comes no surprise that banks as well as other financial institutions are the most common targets of cybercrime. Hence why there's such a big deal about paying attention to just what's going to happen with this ISO 222 mandate. Because if anything, jumping to that new messaging system is not just about how fast the likes of XLM or XRP, for instance, that on-demand liquidity, what they can provide, right, as far as TPS, but it's the security. If you have the old Swift system, by the way, Swift is not going away, it's just more like an upgrade. So if you had the old Swift system in which basically you could take a few hours or as much as a day to transfer a bunch of money, let's face it, $10 trillion plus from point A, which is a particular central bank, to point B, which is, let's face it, could be like not just a cross-border payment, it could be overseas payment to, for instance, the opposite side of the world, South Korea or something like that, right? Japan, wherever the case be. But it takes all day. That makes it vulnerable for hackers. The longer you give a hacker to potentially, take a portion of that $10 trillion payment, that's going to be a problem, right? So look at this. It says, consequently, many banks have updated their procedures and systems in an effort to prevent such crimes from occurring, hence ISO 222 compliancy. Now are you drawing the connection, if anything, understanding why we put so much focus on the utility run that would trigger the bull run? It starts with these particular ones. It's not just Qnt, it's not just XRP, it's not just XLM, right? But if anything, those are the top three that stand out for us, right? And if anything, a lot of these other ones will be triggered. So it states, it follows that financial institutions are finally taking advantage of the new technologies, I should say, available to help them meet the expectations of their customers. In this situation, QFS saves the day. The future-proof system is hailed as the way forward for all financial transactions. That's the key thing, because the consistent thing that you've seen here is on that particular list of QFS cryptos. It's not just the ISOs. You have, for instance, other ones, right? Polygon and so on. The program is not designed to run on conventional computers, but rather on a satellite-based quantum computer. Quantum financial systems heavily secured by secret space programs, the SSP. Sorry about that. I didn't want to cough in the mic. Providing the highest level of security. That's the key thing. Many experts believe quantum technology will solve issues such as security, the speed of processing, and the efficiency of data management. Now, what is that? What is quantum computing? Well, let's jump into it. Quantum computing, the laws of quantum mechanics are applied to processing any kind of data. The traditional method for encoding data in a computer uses long strings of quote-unquote bits, right? Each representing either a 0 or a 1. As opposed to a classical computer, a quantum computer makes use of quantum bits or qubits, right? Quantum financial systems specifically, let's jump into that. What is the origin of the QFS? It all started when people became aware of the inefficiencies of the current financial system. Several prominent individuals came together to address these issues in an effort to advance financial technology by using quantum computation and distributed ledgers. So here's the key thing I want to point out, and that is when you see, for instance, crypto regulation coming here soon, we need to have just that, the regulatory clarity, and I think we get there. But the other key thing is what is going to help get all this, where we have the institutional money coming after the clarity, is basically the whole idea of having something be mentioned, or I should say put into writing, that shows that we do not want to suppress the technology. We can track activity, but let's not be tracking where we're suppressing technology. And that's why I feel as though it's great to have an understanding that this is not all a scam. Technology is not a scam. There might be bigger players involved, like, let's face it, the likes of Sam Bankman-Fried and so on, who are bad apples, to say the least, who try to ruin and tarnish the name of crypto. But when it comes to just that, understanding the advancement of financial technology using specifically quantum computation and distributed ledgers, that's the technology. The technology is what will save this going further. It's the evolution of these particular technologies, and it's the particular products, I should say, and services that are tied into this that we want to be, or at least I want to be, invested in. Again, not financial advice. Thus, the quantum financial system was created, creating a new era for financial services as well as monetary transactions. And we already know that we're going to enter into a new era of the new monetary money system, right? So what is that all about and so on? Well, look at this. As part of this system, you can track all your tangible assets, such as gold, oil, platinum. See the consistency that we're getting here? The consistent thing is understanding which particular cryptos are tied into just that. Being backed by gold, XRP, being backed by silver, XLM. so on and so forth, right? So it says instead of paper money, which has little systematic value. And again, I've been very, very consistent of how I've stated for, I don't even know how long now, many months, that when it comes to specifically the likes of crypto, but let's face it, when people first started in crypto, Bitcoin and so on, there used to be a popular saying, maybe it's still popular, I don't know, and that was, well, Bitcoin was created as a hedge against inflation. That could be any more further from the truth. Bitcoin was originally created as a hedge against money printing. Think about the time it came out. It came out rising from the ashes of what the 2007 to 2009, or technically, up to 2010 recession. Yes, that particular recession. It's a hedge against money printing. And if anything, look at the consistencies that we see now. You have, for instance, various different cryptos that need to be backed by gold, backed by silver, so on and so forth. Why? Because it cannot be, if the US dollar is not backed by anything, it used to be, right? It used to be before 1971, before Nixon took us off the gold standard, it used to be backed by gold. Now you see a shift, a complete, for instance, 180 of the whole system, right? Or we do now see things being backed by gold again. So why does this matter? Well, let's get a little bit more into it. So it says, using this system, all sovereign currencies are secured by gold or assets. Their sustainability may even be guaranteed this way. Transactions will be processed via the QFS VPN, which can be used for purchasing any product or service. But listen to this. Compared to other phonetic technologies, QFS is superior. The fact that it clocks in at 3.5 trillion frames per second is evidence of just that. The system replaces the outdated IP dynamic routing protocol by using true physical GPS authentication in the routing between sender and receiver while maintaining 100% financial security and privacy for all currency holders. That's one of the key takeaways that you want to have as maybe somebody who is interested in getting into some of these. Now, what are the characteristics, right? This is a particular deep dive, I know, but if anything, what are the characteristics? We got to know this. At least I want to know it. I want to know everything there is to know about the specifics in regards to all of this. Why? Because I feel as though if I'm going to be throwing a decent amount of money at this, I should know, right? And I think if anything, a lot of you guys appreciate that. So it says a universal network will be developed to facilitate the transfer of asset-backed funds. It is capable of replacing the SWIFT system that it is centrally controlled by the United States. And as we know, for instance, SWIFT, it's not that it's going to be replaced, it's going to be upgraded, right? With what? The likes of ISO 222. And again, it's the ones that are tied into specifically that. If you have the likes of Qnt, that's ISO TC307, that literally have Gilbert Verdian, who wrote the ISO standard, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2014, it's kind of like use layman's terms, right? To explain this, Max. Okay, I will. Look at it this way. Gilbert Verdian is like the godfather, if you will, or the pioneer of just that, the ISO standard. Why wouldn't you be excited of understanding where this is all going? All right. All parties involved can be protected against corruption and manipulation at the banking system level. Yes, very true. It provides banks with monitoring and protection with respect to the signed contract for transfer fund processing. Again, Qnt, you have, for instance, secure smart contracts. Not just smart contracts. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing on Cardano. I own Cardano, right? But Cardano is looked at upon as being, yeah, we have smart contracts. How about Qnt? Secure smart contracts. Right? We even saw what they did with NFTs. We covered it. If you haven't seen that particular video, you need to see that particular video about what QRC 721 and understand what Qnt brings to the table by securing NFTs. My goodness, do I need to say more? Anyway, I will say more. So it says an independent system that does not depend on the existing centralized system. Rather than a cryptocurrency, this is an asset-backed digital currency. And again, if you want to know more about this, you can do more of your particular deep dive into this if you like. Now, one thing I also want to point out is specifically just this, and that is we need to follow And you could type this in yourself if you want. Just go to Google, type in QFS, Quantum Financial System, and then put CMC. I believe it's like the 4th or 5th link down. Try to follow all this, you know. If anything, I'm just gonna click follow. I was already following it, my bad. But anyway, it's very, very consistent, because my thing is this: I want to not invest in a bunch of garbage. I want to invest in, for instance, ones that have real solid utility. And guys, look at how consistent this has been for the last 7 days. Literally, you have about 15 out of 20 of these really doing well. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't mean that, you know, Casper's not going to pop off and so on. If anything, Casper is very, for instance, underrated or undervalued and so on, right? As we know, Polygon, you know, are you kidding me? Ranked 11th and so on. So, I wanted to give you guys that extended coverage in regards to some of this, just to kind of give you a broader understanding of just that, the quantum financial system. Not just about ISO 2022, and look, don't get me wrong, we put a lot of focus on just that. But I think, if anything, we need to have a more broader understanding of what is really at stake here. And it's just that, the QFS, the quantum financial system. So I'm glad to be able to not only back up further statements in regards to the quote-unquote bull run thesis, the utility run that will trigger, for instance, the bull run, but on top of that, give you guys a more firmer understanding of what the quantum financial system is all about and why we need to pay so much attention to just that. So thanks again for watching, everybody. I realize that was a little bit more extended deep dive, and I do appreciate you being here if you're, for instance, watching from the beginning to the end. If you want more particular coverage, you just can't get enough. Watch us every single day at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for Crypto Talk Now. And if you enjoy a weekly roundtable discussion where we have other members of our community join us, like, for instance, the Crypto Smith, aka Sean, Daniel Gayton, Waddy the Crypto Hunter, so on and so forth, check us out. It's a show that's every Wednesday, and also 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, called the Crypto Roundtable. And if anything, I hope to be able to be there tonight, unless, for instance, something comes up with my dad. He's been in the hospital and so on. So hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And by all means, subscribe if you haven't done so already as well. Have a blessed day, everybody. We will see you on the next one.